Okay, so we're going to start the webinar today. Hello and hola. Welcome to this webinar that is hosted by Transcom that explores Bogota and new trends and nearshore advantages in 2021. My name is Mark Angus. I'm the CEO, Research and Strategist of Genesis Global Business Services and Knowledge Executive. And joining me today are a knowledgeable panel of speakers, experts, and influencers whom I will introduce to you shortly. To kick off today's session, we're going to first play a video that introduces Colombia and the special place that is Bogota.
Hi, let me show you a special place. I'm going to talk to you about that place in Latin America, the capital of Colombia. That country you might have heard mentioned in the news and in the movies. That country has now changed. And its capital, Bogota, well, it's what makes it shine even more. Bogota is a big city, and I mean big because there are more than 11 million of us. We have big dreams, projects, and companies, as well as big festivals and big mountains. We also have big talent. We are the region's entrepreneurship capital, the continent's new business hub, and a UNESCO City of Music. Because on top of being kind and friendly, every day our people show their ability to work on innovative and creative ideas that transform the world. Today we are ready to keep growing and welcome other great companies so that we can do things better together.
In the last few years, we've received over 1,500 foreign companies,
such as Scotiabank, Medtronic, H&M, Amazon, L'Oreal, and Diageo, amongst others, that through their capabilities, technologies, and by generating high-quality employment, have helped the economy to keep growing, so that more companies, tourists, and students come to Bogota. And like all good Latinos, we know how to enjoy life.
The best Latin nightlife and live music, world-class restaurants, 6 open-air festivals of different music styles, professional film, music, arts, fashion, and food markets.
Okay? Because here, we call chicken soup ajiaco, cheese buns almojábana, and buses, well, Transmilenio. I would like to show you more things, but I know you don't have that much time. That's why I'd like to invite you to discover more about us and see that what I'm telling you is true.
That's in the words of those who dare to do business with us.
Those who set out on an adventure to explore, discover, savor, and have fun in Bogota. We are here to help you set up in Bogota, succeed in business, and discover the huge opportunities that the city holds. And this is our team. Say hi, guys.
The best partner you can find.
Truly a great introduction to Bogota, which, as you can see from the video, is the administrative, political, and industrial center of Colombia. But it is also emerging as a customer experience nearshore location of choice. And we are going to talk further about that today. We've got a panel of experts that will walk us through that, and that will actually tell us more about the value proposition that Bogota can offer. I'm just going to share a presentation which we will walk through. So our panel of knowledge leaders, we've got a great lineup today, and they include Don Berryman, who has over 30 years experience on both the client side, building and operating call centers for USA Today early in his career, and the vendor side with executive positions in operations, then sales, and marketing. Don was previously with Cytel as president and general manager of the Americas, where he dramatically grew their business through Central and South America, in Colombia, Nicaragua, and Panama and Mexico. He then moved to Chief Commercial Officer, where his team developed solutions for global clients into many onshore, nearshore, and offshore locations. Don joined Transcom in March 2020 as the Chief Commercial Officer in North America to introduce North American clients to the global opportunities with Transcom. Welcome, Don.
Thanks a lot, Mark. Glad to be here.
Thank you very much. Great that you could join us today. Juan is also with us, Juan Hatardo. He is the Managing Director of Transcom Latin America and is responsible for the successful launch of operations in Colombia and Mexico. He founded Teledatos SA in 1994, which was the first contact center in Colombia with just 3 people. By 2009, Teledatos led the Colombian contact center industry with revenues of over 70 million and a workforce of over 8,000 agents servicing leading companies such as SAB Miller, Avianca, and CEMEX, and Vodafone and Orange for the Spanish and offshore markets. In late 2009, Teledatos became part of Teleperformance Group, and as president of Teleperformance Colombia, Juan continued to grow the local and Spanish markets and focused on opening the nearshore market for US TP clients such as AT&T and Comcast. 5 years later, Teleperformance Colombia had grown to approximately 12,000 employees. Given his deep understanding of the Spanish contact center market, in 2014, Juan became president of the Colombia Spain region of Teleperformance and moved to Madrid, where he directed the operations for both countries until 2016. And as mentioned, he is now the managing director of Transcom LATAM and is responsible for operations in Colombia and Mexico. Welcome, Juan.
Thank you, Mark.
Peter Ryan also joins us today. He is the principal and chief analyst of Ryan Strategic Advisory, and he's a seasoned BPO analyst and who has speciality in customer experience, in excellence, nearshoring, and offshoring. Peter has been at the forefront of the contact center services market advisory for over a decade. Having begun his career in London at Data Monitor, he quickly established himself as one of the foremost experts in the burgeoning CRM space. Over the course of his career, he has advised contact center outsourcers, their clients, industry associations, and governments on matters ranging from vertical market penetration and service delivery to best practice and offshore positioning. Hello and welcome, Peter.
Hey, Mark, great to be here. Thanks.
Thank you, and we look forward to hearing from you just now in your presentation. You've got some great insights to share with us today.
Thank you.
Mauricio Velasquez also joins us. He is a certified outsourcing professional based in Colombia with over 15 years of business sales and technical experience. This includes strategy definition and implementing of outsourcing processes. Mauricio is a results-oriented professional with a unique combination of business, sales, and technical expertise that provides strategic system solutions to global clients within different industries. His experience in handling operational and strategic problems, as well as understanding the client and service provider side, allows him to bring great benefits to his clients. And Mauricio also brings over 25 years of professional information technology experience to clients in Latin America. Thank you for joining us, Mauricio. So we have a really great and insightful and informative webinar planned for you today, starting with a short presentation by Peter, where he'll cover why Nearshore, why Colombia, and why Bogota, followed by a talk show with Juan and Don, who will take us through the Transcom Bogota case study. This will be followed by a short discussion with our panel of experts, and then we'll go into an open Q&A session with our participants in the webinar. And a reminder to please, while we are running the webinar, you can post your questions into both the Q&A and chat channels. You will see those functions in your menu bar at the bottom. While the webinar is running in real time, please feel free to start posting your questions, and we'll be monitoring those as the webinar runs in real time. To watch this webinar today, we have over 90 participants joining us from all over the world, so thank you for taking the time to join us. So Peter, over to you. Let's answer those questions. Why Nearshore, why Colombia, and why Bogota?
Well, Mark, thank you very much. And, I like to look at this as not necessarily a presentation, but a discussion amongst friends. I can say to you that as we group together today online virtually to talk a little bit about what's happening in Colombia, Bogota, and the Nearshore, I have known Juan, I've known Don and Mauricio for well over a decade each. And I think it's wonderful that we're able to come together today to talk a little bit about some of the trends that not just we've all collectively experienced, but where really some of these elements are going when it comes to CX services. And when we're talking about nearshoring, probably one of the most important things that I can talk to our audience from around the world about today is why there is so much interest around this business model when it comes to CX services. Now, when we're thinking about nearshoring in the context of 2021 and beyond, one of the things that I immediately consider is the extent to which it is an accessible part of the world, especially from North America. The reality is that executives don't want to travel as much as they were. They certainly don't want to travel the distances that they were in the past. And literally every great location in the nearshore is within a 6-hour flight of the US and Canada. And within that scope of the nearshore countries is language alignment. You find significant bilingualism in most parts of the nearshore, whether it's Spanish, whether it's English, but the ability to service in high quality linguistics is very important in this business model's regard. And certainly the value that you get from the nearshore is tremendous. The one you hear about is not just a lower cost, but also a very high quality, and that equates to value. And I think that has a lot to do with the legacy that the nearshore has in regards to how it has positioned itself in terms of the number of smaller, medium-sized and larger outsourcers that are servicing clients for all the way from the US border down through to Colombia. And that speaks to the alignment as well. Think about the fact that in the nearshore, we're talking about agents that are not just in close proximity, but also have a good understanding about the products and services that they are supporting for US and Canadian end users. The reality is they're probably using a lot of these products and services themselves, and they're consuming media from North America as well, which makes that alignment and that empathy so much important. And then there's choice. The fact of the matter is, in the nearshore, you have literally got well over 24 reasonable choices from which to choose where you want to have customer experience delivered from. I don't think there's any other region in the world where we can talk about that choice that potential enterprise clients or outsourcers are spoiled for, which is great. Now think about this in the context of the offshore though, and I'm not undermining the offshore as a business model, but for more and more, we can see that the distance is becoming very painful for individuals to travel. You know, we consider that the Philippines is a good 24 hours from North America, India, a 15-hour direct flight, South Africa, a 15-hour direct flight. Very, very difficult for a lot of executives to make the case to travel those distances and then deal with the time zone lags, climate shifts, etc. I don't think there's anywhere in the offshore that you can find the levels of Spanish that are going to be important from the perspective of servicing the United States, especially where 60 million individuals are choosing Spanish as their mother tongue. It's going to be very tough to go anywhere in the offshore to be able to find reasonable numbers, reasonable volumes of people with those linguistic skills. The offshore is not as cost effective as it once was, and I think this is very important. We've seen a lot more price escalation in some of the key offshore locations, which really I think erodes that whole price point argument that many were making for so many years. There's a lot of unproven options in the offshore, locations that are positioning themselves as the best spot to do CX, but the reality is we don't know that. And when we think about that compared to the nearshore, where there's so many proven options, it's tough really to go into uncharted territory. Customer acceptance about the offshore isn't nearly what it is in terms of the nearshore. There's concerns about quality when it comes to accent and the ability to service the North American consumer. And then there's the whole issue about instability. Now, we all know that locations, no matter where they are, can be prone to disruption. But I think there's an understanding that in the offshore, this has been a little bit more sensitive as opposed to other parts of the nearshore over the course of the past few years. Now, if we go to the next slide, please, Mark, I'm going to talk a little bit about why Colombia, what's driving Colombia as a preferred US CX destination. Now, think about it from the standpoint of some research that Ryan Strategic Advisory did most recently in terms of American buyers, American enterprise buyers. Now, what we saw was that out of roughly 15 to 20 nearshore locations, Colombia was the second most favored next to Mexico. It effectively came in a very, very strong second amongst American buyers for nearshore options. And I think that there's a lot of different elements that are contributing to that. Number one, Colombia is not only an easy place to get to, but it's not a long haul flight from the United States. Think about it from the standpoint of I've flown into Colombia many, many times, and it's always been 5 hours or less. That really resonates with people who are effectively traveled out in terms of long distances. It's a very stable country, politically, economically, from the standpoint of public security, and it has been over the course of the last 2 decades. They've made a huge push on this. It's got a great track record in servicing American enterprises and American consumers. We can take a look at the companies that have set up there. And a lot of this has to do with the fact that there's been a significant amount of government support at the national, the municipal, and the regional level for the CX industry, as well as the fact that there's been one of the best, if not the best, BPO industry body in the Americas that represents CX organizations and does a wonderful job lobbying in their regard. The value that we hear about the Colombian opportunity is tremendous from enterprises that are using it as a location and the outsourcers that are servicing them from that location in terms of making sure that end users have the best interaction as possible. The workforce quality speaks a lot to that. There's a significant amount of talented skills in the labor pool in Colombia for the CX industry to draw from. And the scalability is really quite something. You know, a population roughly 50 million, that's the same population in essence as South Africa or Poland. It's a very large location, a great location from which to draw labor, and a great location in which that labor comes to the table with a lot of skills, whether it's technical, whether it's professional services, whether it's languages. But then we drill down even further, Mark, if we go to the next slide, and Bogota. And I've said here, Bogota is really at the heart. It's in the corazon of the Colombian CX industry. And I think there's a number of reasons for this. And let me just say too, I visited Bogota many, many times. Something that always strikes me is each time I get there, the infrastructure has made massive improvements. And we saw in the video the reference to the Millennium bus system. I mean, this is really, I think, one of the compelling reasons why Bogota has been able to move forward, because the government at the municipal, the national level as well, have kicked in the funding to make sure that transport especially is in a much better position now than it ever has been in terms of getting people back and forth from their homes to roles. It's one of the best locations to fly in and out of. I think it's probably got the most modern airport in South America, and that's done wonders in terms of accessibility into the city. The labor force of Bogota, I mean, we heard again in the video, 11 million people plus. That's bigger than most countries in the Nearshore, and you've got that all in one city to draw from. And it's drawing in talent that's being educated at a number of different post-secondary education facilities, whether it's technical school, whether it's university. There's well over 100 of these in the Bogota area. The number of companies that have made Bogota part of their CX investments, but made it actually a CX hub, is incredible. And certainly the list of captives and BPOs is one of the most blue chip that you would find anywhere in the world. And that contact center culture is so important. When you're going out, you don't need to sell the CX industry to the labor force. They understand that they can not just get a job, but they can make a career in this state. And we've seen so many individuals that have worked their way up from the front lines into management roles in Bogota, which adds to that value. And the fact is too, that there is now more tourism, whether it's business tourism or cultural tourism, coming in and out of Colombia from the United States. It's one of the hottest destinations in the world. And as we saw from the video, whether it's the restaurant scene, the food scene, the music scene, some of the antiquities and some of the history, or even the natural terrain, there's so many reasons why people are visiting Bogota and enjoying their visits there too. So to sum it up, Mark, I just want to make a few comments. I think it's very clear that executives from the United States especially are growing a little bit tired or a little bit suspicious of offshoring, given the strain that's been placing on themselves and their companies in terms of the long distances and dealing with those long distances. The Nearshore is definitely, from a US standpoint, a business model that I think every enterprise realizes it has to leverage. But getting the right location down, figuring out where to go in the Nearshore is so important. And I think when you're spoiled for choice, picking the right spot is definitely going to be a challenge. when we think about the fact that Colombia has moved to the top of the rankings amongst US buyers, a lot of this has to do with the focus on quality, the stability, and the proximity. And within the Colombian option, Bogota, I think, is really seen as the capital. You know, not just the capital of the country, but the capital of CX. Think about the elements of getting in and out of the city. Think about what you can do when you're there. Think about the great labor force you can draw from, and the scalability and the quality. All this adds up. And with that in mind, I'll pass the baton back to you, Mark, but I just want to say I'm so happy to be able to talk about a city that I have enjoyed visiting so much over the course of the past several years. There is a great deal going on in Bogota, and I really figure that Bogota is going to find almost a 2.0 version as we move forward. The fact of the matter is that when you get a city the size of Bogota, when you get a city the size of perhaps other countries in the nearshore, there's no question that the innovation that comes to the table, whether it's driven by the industry association, which I know Juan and Mauricio have been instrumental in terms of its ongoing legacy and even getting it started up. They drive that interest from all sorts of different providers, from enterprises, and from prospective members of the labor force as well. In my view, there's going to be a renaissance within the Colombian contact center industry, and Bogota will be very much at the heart of that moving forward.
Peter, thank you. That was a great presentation.
Thank you.
And yeah, I have to say, it really makes you see how vibrant the market is and how Bogota and Colombia's value proposition, how that stands out as a customer experience in nearshore delivery locations. So thank you for that presentation. Very insightful.
It's my pleasure. And as I say, Mark, you know, I've had the chance to visit Colombia many times. And as far as I'm concerned, the value that I saw from my first trip in 2008, when the industry was really starting off as a nearshore burgeoning location, it's morphed into not just one of the best value propositions in the nearshore, but really in the world.
Thank you. And we definitely want to hear more from you as we go into the panel discussion later about that. Thank you. We're going to move into the talk show part of our webinar today. And we're going to ask Juan and Don to take a closer look at Transcom's investment and transformation in Colombia specifically. While they're speaking, we're going to be playing two videos with no sound. And you will first see in the first video Transcom's facilities in Bogota, followed by a second video with aerial footage and different scenes of the city. So Don, could you then tell us why is Transcom investing in Colombia?
Sure. Let me add first, Peter, I thought that was a great presentation. Fantastic, a lot of facts, great information, so thank you. First of all, we're really looking forward to adding Bogota to our already substantial footprint. We support a large number of world's top brands, so we have a lot to offer, and this gives us even more. And we're really excited about being a challenger to those global leaders. And there's more than this to this investment in just one site for Transcom. We're really opening up a new continent for our clients. This new location gives us really the best solution for North American nearshore, as Peter suggested, and of course, Spain offshore for our client alternatives. This expands our global footprint with options for existing and new client opportunities. We selected Colombia, when you think about it, for a lot of the reasons that Peter mentioned. A strong cultural alignment with US consumers, the best global Spanish dialect for any country serving that offshore market. Certainly supportive government and business investments, as you can tell and you've seen, substantial investments in Colombia. It looks like a major city, and it is, with 11 million population. And of course, the biggest reason for us is the most experienced workforce in the call center industry in Latin America. So our clients also have shown a great deal of interest and excitement in Colombia, specifically Bogota. The population of 11 million, Bogota is filled with experienced call center leaders, which we're looking for, and that's going to help us with our footprint as we go into this brand new market in Latin America. We also plan to use Bogota as a launching pad into other locations in Colombia and Central and South America to make sure we have a full portfolio for our clients and the relevant geographies for our clients to expand our footprint and become that challenger that we're looking to do as we started last year and certainly head into this year with a tremendous amount of growth and momentum behind us. We've already built a vibrant pipeline of new and existing clients waiting for us to open in Bogota and in this new location. So again, we're really excited about expanding into this market. It's a great city, a great location, and one of the best in Latin America that we could hope for. And we hope that this is going to be our starting point into additional sites in Mexico planned for later this year, and also other cities around Colombia as well. And as that goes, and as our clients grow further into Central and South America. So we're excited to be here and excited to open up our facility in April. And I'll turn it back to you, Mark.
Thank you, Don. That's great. I really enjoyed those insights. And I'd like to now pass over to Juan. Juan, how is Transcom Colombia prepared to meet the needs of the industry going through significant transformation at the moment?
Yeah, thank you, Mark, and thank you all for joining this forum. Of course, Transcom Colombia will implement a hybrid operational model here, driven by an experienced management team and power as well by a digital proficiency and bilingual labor force in Colombia. That's in a nutshell what we want to do here. Now, how are we going to do this? We have, like what I say, 3 pillars that are the priorities for us. The first pillar that we have, I would say, is the hybrid model that we are going to implement, that is work at home and brick and mortar. Of course, we are going to leverage all the experience that Transcom has in both operational models. It's important to mention that in North America, Transcom has 10-year plus experience in work at home. We are not here like in the work at home strategy because of the pandemic. No, Transcom is one of the leaders in the work at home operational model. That's why Forbes recently awarded Transcom as one of the top 10 companies for remote work in 2021. It's important to mention that in North America, Transcom already has big operation, 2,000 plus seats operation that are already COPC certified in the work at home model. That means that the company, we have all the tools, all the processes to guarantee an operational excellence in the work at home model. And needless to say, Transcom already has a deep experience in the brick and mortar in Asia Pacific and in the EMEA market for attending bilingual US clients for sure. The second pillar that we have is, of course, we have is not only Juan Hatardo, but we have an experienced team of people that we are bringing together, more than 100 years of experience in the industry. We have set up, run and grown operations, successful operations for the US nearshore market, for the Spanish offshore market, and of course, for the Latin American market, domestic market. That's important to mention. And for that, one of the key advantages that we have is that we have a deep knowledge of the local culture and the workforce here in Colombia, and of course, later in Mexico. And then the third pillar that we have is Colombia. I'm delighted of listening all the presentation of Peter Bryan, because I remember 10 years ago, Peter, when we were launching the first operations in Colombia, we were asking the same question: is Colombia going to be able to supply the demand for bilingual agents? And I mean, it's glad to me to share with you the figure that we have right now. The industry in Colombia has grown from 100,000 10 years ago to close to 300,000. That's the overall industry. In terms of the bilingual labor force, I mean, 10 years ago, we were like 100 people. Last year, we have close to 50,000 people. 50,000 bilingual agents in Colombia. That's incredible. And how is Colombia coping with this growing demand? I mean, only Bogota, for example, to give you an idea, is graduating every year 25,000 students in IT and computer, 65,000 students in business, finance, and accounting. So that gives you close to 100,000 new graduate students every year. So for me, that's the seed that has allowed Colombia, and specifically Bogota, to supply the growing demand for both digitally and bilingual agents here. So the 3 key pillars that I mentioned before, the hybrid operational model, the management team, and the ability that Colombia, and specifically Bogota, has to provide the supply for a growing demand in both digital and bilingual agents are going to be I think that those are the right foundation for serving clients in this growing and transforming industry. That's going to be my presentation, Mark.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Juan. We really appreciate that. And we're now going to move into the broader panel discussion with our panelists that have joined us today. Firstly, thank you to Juan and Don for those really clear insights on Transcom's value proposition and investment and growth in Colombia. Very, very interesting. Let's turn to our panel discussion now. I'm going to start again with you, Don. And I'd like to ask you a question. Why is opening up the site in Colombia important to your management team?
Sure. Thanks, Mark. That's a great question. It's important to us because we need that option of a nearshore location. The U.S. market, as for a number of reasons that Peter mentioned in his presentation, that people are growing leery of the long trips to Asia. And I think one of the things the pandemic certainly did, and nobody anticipated when the world closed down and call centers all over the world shut down, no one's been able to get to a number of locations in offshore. They still can't get there today. And I think they realized that they need to have alternatives to the offshore locations, where offshore certainly, one, it's a great market, and certainly from a cost efficient standpoint, it's very, very cost efficient. But I think we're finding places like Bogota is nearly as cost efficient as some of the offshore locations. It has a great worker environment and work history. And what you just heard from Juan, a growing number of people that are educated in the workforce. And so for our management team to have that option to provide to our clients for a nearshore location, to give them that diversity of their footprint, and that backup is really important to us. And so that's why it's so important. And I did see another question here from April, and I wanted to answer in a little bit, because I've been to Bogota a number of times over the last 10 years. And it's an absolutely great city. It's very vibrant. It's very safe. Certainly when I travel there, someone from our team picks us up. But we've been to outdoor restaurants, and they have outdoor malls, which are fantastic. And I feel very safe around the city. But like other major cities anywhere in the world, you wouldn't hop into a taxi without calling for it. You wouldn't stop at an ATM machine at night alone by yourself. Those are just things you just don't do. You don't do that in any major cities. I wouldn't do that, in Atlanta where I live. But at the same time, I feel it's a absolutely great city, safe city. The people are wonderful. And that's exactly why we're starting there in our launch into Latin America.
Don, thank you very much.
Sure.
And I'd like to also ask Juan more specifically. You gave a great presentation earlier about Transcom in Bogota, and I'd like to find out more about Transcom meeting the needs of consumers in the United States. So can you care to comment on that?
Yes, Mark, sure. And for me, that's this industry is having like two challenges right now. The first one is because of the pandemic, that we have to implement the hybrid model that I've mentioned before. But at the same time, this is an industry that has been transforming. The consumer right now is looking for more digital services. And I think that that's one of the other challenges that we have here. And Colombia, as I mentioned before, has a labor force that it has the skills for both the bilingual and the digital services that the U.S. customers are demanding. But to give you my very personal view of the challenge that we have ahead, I think that for me the biggest challenge is to create a culture here that is not only client-centric but employee-centric. I am an advocate of the Maslow hierarchy of needs. When you have the basic needs fulfilled, then you look for the belonging, then recognition, and then you need the growth and the career development path. That's easier said than done. I mean, since I started my company back in 1994 with 3 people and growing up to 14,000 has been the everyday challenge, how to maintain a culture when as you grow, you are not feeling that you are a number in the company, but to have this sense of belonging. For me, this is the key pillar for building up a successful operation here. I have no doubts that, no question that Transcom has all the best practices, the tools, the standards to have a successful launch of the operations here. That's given, I guess. But the real challenge here is how to create a culture where the people has the employees, they have the feeling of belonging, that they feel that they see Transcom Colombia as the best option for them to fulfill all the basic needs, since belonging, recognition, and until to have the growth and development career here in Colombia. I think that if we are able to create that culture, and with all the knowledge that I have already mentioned from Transcom, we will have a very successful launch of the operation here in Colombia and in Mexico as well.
Thank you very much, Juan. I'd like to ask Maurizio a question now. And Maurizio, with all your years of experience, you're in Colombia. Can you tell us what drives customer experience in Colombia? And also, what are the country's key and unique differentiators?
Well, thank you, Mark, for again for inviting me to this conversation. And I will drive this answer in 5 points. The first one is government support. For the last, I would say, 12 to 15 years, it has been considered the customer experience / BPO sector a program of the government, which is very important because it has brought all the participants in the ecosystem that are allowed to keep being sustainable, and throughout governments, with no, I would say, political responsibility, had troubles with it. So it's a continuous program supported by government and by many entities, private and governmental. And as Mark said, Peter said, the private sector is being participant, very, very involved into it through companies like Transcom. The second thing is, I would say, relationships. And when I mean relationships is we have had very strong relationships, governmental relationships and political relationships with the United States for many years and with other countries. So at the end, that helps us in two ways. One, we do know how to do business with companies from states. We understand how is to make it happen and establish good relationships. And the other one is with other latitudes, as Don and Juan were saying, you know, with Spain and Latin countries. And we are right now, I would say, number 3 in terms of population in Latin America. The third one is infrastructure. Infrastructure is very solid into, I would say, most of the cities, and in particular in Bogota. So you can find a state-of-the-art sites on which you can place your operations. And one second thing which has appeared during COVID pandemic is we discovered that our infrastructure in terms of quality and quantity and characteristics is solid. So most people can still work from home with no major hurdles and situations. So at the end, it's very important towards what we do. The third one is, fourth one is numbers. And when I mean numbers is growing numbers. For the last 12 years, we have grown from 59,000 contact center positions to kind of 150,000 positions by 2020. And at the same time, people employment is booming. 2-digit growth on operational income of most of the companies for the last 5 years and on the industry, which is very important. And the other thing to consider is that the investment and the interest of companies like Transcom coming to Colombia has been here to stay. So it's important in terms of how the industry behaves. And last but not least is economics. Economics is very important from the standpoint because most of the young kids and girls that come and work for us and with us see this, as Juan was saying, as the starting point to grow in an industry that is becoming almost every day very important. So culturally and economically, it's very important towards it. So I would say that those are the characteristics that we have. And last but not least, feel free, feel safe, that when you come to Colombia, you're gonna have good people taking care of you. And it's not, what I mean is what I've seen and what Juan Rodrigo and I, who work together, have done with people that we have received here. We like people to feel that we, as probably some years ago, there was a motto at the Colombian government: Colombia is passion. And that passion is transferred towards what we do, how we put it to service, and to the amount of people that is available and ready to participate and work in the industry. That's my answer.
Thank you, Maurizio.
Mark.
I'm really glad that you brought up the COVID-19 pandemic, because I'm sure that's also on top of everybody's minds. And I'm going to turn to Peter to actually answer that question. So, Peter, what will be the key advantages of operating in Colombia post the global pandemic?
Look, I think that we've identified that there's already a lot of inherent structural advantages to being in Colombia, and pandemic aside, the country has certainly proven the value of investment over the course of the past decade and a half. Now, as we move into the post-pandemic, the post-vaccine period, I think that there's going to be an inherent advantage to being in Colombia, given the fact that you've got not just, I think we've talked about a legacy of the CX industry, and certainly some of the biggest names in the CX business, including Transcom, that are on the ground there. But I think one of the main elements is the fact that, as Juan and Maurizio had touched on, the government has put in place a very favorable climate in which the contact center or the CX industry can not just operate, but really thrive. And this is a word I would use here: thrive. The fact of the matter is that work will be in a position where it can be delivered in a center. It will be in a position where people can work remotely, work from home, because of the tremendous investment that's gone into the infrastructure, especially around connectivity and quite frankly, accessibility, making sure that people are in a position to have good plans in place, that their homes are going to be wired up, and that they'll be able to do very, very high quality work using a very high quality level of connectivity. Coupled with that, Mark, too, is the fact that I really believe that as we move into the post-pandemic and post-vaccine period, something that Dawn alluded to and I spoke about in my presentation is the accessibility of the country. I'm not saying that the offshore is going away. It's certainly not going to, but the importance of being able to get to locations that are going to be within a short travel time, that you can be reasonably confident of getting in and out of relatively quickly, where you're not going to have to spend lots of times traveling in confined spaces or traveling back and forth through different airports, is going to be so crucial. And with that in mind, I really believe that Colombia is going to fit the bill for so many enterprises based in the United States that are looking for a scalable alternative, looking for a quality alternative, and looking for an alternative that I think is really going to be one that's going to be sustained over the long term. It's not just going to be a flash in the pan.
So true. And just looking at all those videos that we saw earlier,
yeah,
and what lovely facilities that they have, how beautiful the city it is, really is an amazing place, and definitely a nearshore location of choice. Thank you for that, Peter.
No, you're welcome, Mark. And if I can just say one more thing,
yeah,
alluding back to the safety question that we had come in from April earlier, and I think this is a very important thing to touch on. Certainly the level of confidence that I've had from all the visits I've had to Bogota or various parts of Colombia, I've never had any issues in terms of visiting different locations and going out, walking around on my own in central business districts. I found people incredibly hospitable. They realize you're a tourist, and immediately you are literally treated like a king or queen. They want to go out of their way to make sure that you enjoy their country. As Dawn said, there's certainly elements of safety that you would want to make sure that you keep in mind when you're visiting a different location. And I live in Montreal, which is one of the safest cities in Canada, but there's parts of the city I wouldn't certainly go to, especially at night. I think as long as you exercise a degree of common sense and logic that you would exercise in any spot that you visited, you will find that it'll be a very rewarding experience getting out and seeing Bogota and seeing different parts of Colombia, because it's such a rich place and you just won't want to leave.
Yeah. Very good points. Thank you. Thank you, Peter. We're going to now move into the Q&A session of the webinar. And those questions have been flying in. Thank you to those who have been posting questions in the chat and Q&A channels. We are monitoring those. A reminder to please continue to post your questions in those channels. And Peter will be moderating this next session where he'll be asking the panelists your questions now. But Peter, before that, I noticed earlier that Kyla Starks has actually joined us. She is from Transcom, and I'd just like to ask her a question, if that's okay. I'm just going to switch on her audio. Kyla?
Hi, how are you?
Very well, thank you. Very good.
Great.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Kyla, you're Transcom's Vice President of Operations in North America. When looking at Colombia, other providers in the area offer work at home. What about Transcom's approach is different?
You know, that's a really good question, and thank you for bringing me in to answer that. We've already discussed it a little bit during this session, but I think really talking about our approach here, which will be very strategic versus the reactive approach that we've seen with the rest of the market due to COVID. You know, we were the first to be certified as a work-at-home provider by COPC, and now still one of the few. And we'll use those same techniques and cadence as we implement in Bogota with our work-at-home strategy. So those methodologies and principles are just so crucial to that flawless execution that creates that operational excellence that's required for work at home. The other thing, and this is probably the biggest thing, is our people. In conjunction with the team that's already established in Bogota, we will be leveraging our work-at-home experts here in North America and combined, and I don't want to give ages or date ourselves at all, but if you add all of our experience together, we have over 100 years of combined experience, and we'll be using that to implement our long-term infrastructure to support our partners there and really expand. You know, work at home Bogota is just the beginning for us in Colombia, and we're excited to expand to the entire country.
Very impressive. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Peter, over to you. Would you like to moderate the...
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you very much, Mark. And we're getting questions in fast and furious. We'll do our best to get to all of them. And I think what's interesting is what I'm seeing coming in relates a lot to the potential. We understand that there is certainly a great history and a great legacy in terms of CX in Colombia and Bogota, but also people are wanting to know about what they can expect going forward, which I think is crucial. There's definitely a sense out there that the best is yet to come. So I'm going to start the first question that's come in from Mark, and I'm going to direct this to Maurizio, but I'd be interested to get Dawn and Juan to weigh in on it as well. So Maurizio, Mark is asking, can you talk a little bit about what Colombia has specifically to offer the BPO industry, given the fact that there's lots of different industries or lots of different verticals operating in Colombia right now? What defines BPO from the perspective of Bogota and the Colombian experience?
Good one. Good one. And let's say to Mike that I will use something that Juan Rodrigo said a couple of minutes ago. It's passion probably is one of the things, and the other one is that in Colombia, the sense of service, I would say that is part of how we behave and the way we behave. The other important thing is that for many, many years, multinational companies and classical technology companies have been established here. So the service that we provide and the ability that we have within ourselves, it's very interesting. The other thing is the capability to grow. And when I mean capability to grow, and as Don and Juan said, besides Bogota, Colombia is a country of regions
Yeah.
that can give us the ability to grow, you know, and that can give us the possibility of keeping, as I said on the answer that I gave to Mark's question, is the support that is being given by government is across, is countrywide. So you won't find specific things for specific cities or specific sites. You find it nationwide, and that is very important. And we've seen that is real. You know, when I mean that is real, is that it works. That you can be here, and as Kyla was saying, and as Juan was saying, we've seen this as a good opportunity to go from the brick and mortar industries into the brain and you know, and the brain and knowledge industries. So at the same time, that is very important. I think I answered the question, and I would like to hear from Juan and Don. You know, if you want, we can mix it and keep it rolling.
I'm gonna pass it to Don now, as somebody who's not Colombian, but somebody who's had a lot of exposure to the country over the course of the past several months. Don, what's your take on that?
First of all, I want to congratulate Mark and everyone else on the panel for not introducing us as Don Juan. I know it was tempting during the discussion. So I personally think, and from the amount of time I spent there, it's the work ethic. The work ethic of the people are fantastic. And I think the average contract for the employees, with the employees, is like a 6-day work week. And so it's amazing to me the amount of emphasis they put in their work, how proud they are of the work that they do, and in listening how they represent the clients that they represent. I mean, seriously, in listening to a lot of the phone calls over the years, you would think that they actually work for the company and actually have been through all of the training and can support the clients like they do, because they just have this passion, strong work ethic, and this passion to satisfy both the customer on the phone and the clients they're working for. So I think it's unique among, there certainly are a lot of great people in call centers all over the world, that's for sure. And I've been in, but when you sit in a call center in Bogota, especially, you just feel that really strong desire to want to work, to support their clients and to do just a great job.
Great. Thanks, Don. Now, Juan, we talked about the fact that in the nearshore, there is literally a lot of choice. It's like a patchwork of different opportunities from a CX standpoint. As somebody who is one of the pioneers of the customer experience sector in Colombia, what do you think sets the country apart compared to other choices you might find in the Caribbean or Central America?
Yeah, that's a good question, Peter. And I will say, as Mauricio said, I think that the main asset that we have as a country is the quality of our people. When we talk about BPO, we are not talking only about basic customer service. We already have another vertical that is growing really fast, is the virtual medical evaluation for US people. We have translation services, and we have a lot of verticals that are growing right now in Colombia in the BPO sector. So I would say that the quality of the people and the availability of the people, since we are a large country, I think those are the fundamentals for growing the BPO industry here in Colombia.
Great, thanks, Juan. Now, we've had a question about language skills, specifically in terms of English. So, Juan, I want to stick with you on this one. You know, obviously, the ability to serve the United States Hispanic community is an imperative for so many different enterprises right now, but equally leveraging a location in which you can find good bilingual talent is always going to be imperative in the nearshore dynamic. What's your take in terms of the current crop of English language speakers in Bogota and Colombia on the whole, and how scalable is that market over the long term?
Yeah, that's a good question, as Peter. As I mentioned before, the bilingual labor pool here in Colombia for the industry has grown from 0 in 2010 to 50,000 in 2021. And I think that the fact that in Bogota, or just give you the figures of Bogota is graduating every year close to 100,000 technical and graduate degrees here in the city. And it's, I mean, we don't have the exact figure, but it is expected to between 15 and 20% of these graduate students are fully bilingual. And as long as the industry will continue demanding positions, not only for agents, but middle level support that we need in the industry. I think that the country and the city is very well positioned to supply this growing demand that the industry is creating.
Great. Well, thank you very much for that.
Peter, let me add
Yes.
something to what Juan said, which
Please.
is complementary and very important. And is, again, government and educational institutions are working together to complement those number of people that Juan was mentioning. And English is becoming more and more a requirement for you when you are studying. So the word of mouth is becoming very solid in terms of this is a solid industry on which you can work. So with that said, that helps us get more and more people. And as Juan said, we started from 0, right now 50,000, and every day are more and more youngsters coming to the equation, you know.
Yeah, and it's interesting, Mauricio, because I remember the first exposure I'd had to Bogota was at a conference back in 2007 where there were representatives from the Invest in Bogota offices. And I remember this was in the south of France, and I was blown out of the water. They were speaking native English. They were speaking flat accents. And I thought to myself, this really bodes well for Colombia as a location of choice in terms of delivery, if you can get that quality of English and that quality of accent from younger people. But we have another question I would like to have you take up, Mauricio. And this is something you and I have talked about. For those of us, or for those of you who don't know in the audience, Mauricio and I go way back and we catch up quite frequently. And one of the things that he was talking to me about not long ago touches on this question that's just coming in. Maybe could you talk a little bit about the stability, the inherent government stability that you find in Colombia that perhaps you might not necessarily get in other parts of the nearshore and the offshore? Maybe what would be some of the key facets that you could speak to in terms of how Colombia has effectively normalized its political situation, and how has that helped the business climate investment?
As I mentioned before, Peter, this industry in particular has had the spotlight of the government for many years. And the important thing is that we have always been there. And when I mean we as participants in the industry, and at the same time, the public association that we've done with them is very solid. So that's important. And it keeps the industry growing and the situations. We have many institutions that are adding to the mix. Regarding politics, well, we had a situation with, you know, violence for many years, which now are, I would say, completely quieted, and that has given us kind of a little noise on the line. But in general, most of the multinationals here that have been for many years, and when I mention many years is, for example, IBM has been here for 100 years, Unisys has been here for 95 years, and some others, you know, it shows the commitment of the US government and the US companies and the Colombian government to make this thing real. So it's not something that we're going to change from right to left, or, you know, from Q's to A's to B's to C, depending on. We have had situations, obviously, and we have known how to overcome it, you know. And one that I know because we were born in Medellin on the hardest times of that particular city with those particular guys. And we've seen the night come, but obviously we have seen how the sun shines every day, and that is basically the energy that we put into these relationships with government and with companies like Transcom that are coming to invest and you know, make it happen in the near future.
Great stuff. Well, Mark, I realize we're at literally the top of the hour, so I'm going to pass it back to you and just say thanks for the candidness and the transparency of our panelists during our Q&A session.
Yeah, very interesting. Thank you for moderating that, Peter, as well. Moderating that so expertly. Thank you. I just wanted to just end off today by saying thank you to everybody for the participants who joined us today. We will be sharing a copy of this presentation and the webinar recording, so look out for it in your inboxes in the next few days. And then I'd just like to give a special thanks to our panelists and speakers, to Don for joining us. Thank you.
My pleasure.
To Juan as well.
Mark.
Thank you. To Maurizio.
Gracias, thank you.
To Peter.
Always a pleasure. Thanks very much.
And special thanks to Transcom for hosting this webinar today. Likewise, thank you to everybody who has joined us from all over the world, all the participants. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your active participation in today's webinar. We wish you all the well in the week ahead, and thank you, and be safe and go well.
Thanks.